Look, people are not going away. They're sticking around to see what the after show is. It's like watching the movie credits.
Hey, that's kind of it. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about, let me
Hold up a sign.
talking about how people learn, taking science to school. I've got.
Well, I know. I mean, and I wanted to ask. I mean, I know there's the maker van, but I don't know what's in the maker van necessarily.
Yeah, and that's kind of well. So the maker van is really we've had to take it off the road for this, but what's inside the maker van is it's a utility. It's a big van, and you've seen it on campus, I imagine.
Yes.
Parked near the library,
Right.
but it's a space that's convertible to go out and do projects with schools. So Gigi Launchball has been going around, and we have kits that he'll take out, go into school, build roller coasters, or do astronomy or rocketry or whatever the school does. We also have robots. He'll take robots out and do robotics with them. The other way that we can, and that's one way, is it gets us to schools and we do things. The other way is that it becomes a roving laboratory. Because if you look inside it, and Mary's not here, but we did a whole spot on the maker van. I don't know if you remember that, but with Mary Hammond for the foundation, we did one. But it has flip down tables, and then at that point, if we were to go out to a field site and say we wanted to study streams or study a field or something, then it becomes a laboratory where we set it up with a hotspot. We've got computers, we can do it. So, for example, one of the field experiences we do that is we convert it over to a launch control for our high altitude balloons, which we didn't talk about those, but they are high altitude balloons. We have everything in there. If we do rocketry, it becomes our mission control for rocketry. Or we go out to do 3D printing with a school that we can't move it in. We can put the 3D printers in there and do it and transport it. So it's a very versatile function, but the primary goal is it is our way to get with those communities that don't have all the resources they may want to come in and provide some STEM teaching activities, becomes a portable lab as we use it, or whatever. So it's a little bit different. If you were to look at it, one day it may have nothing in it, the other day it's got tons of stuff in it. And we make it very portable. So we could set up at a fairgrounds and have a fair and have activities out of it. We even set up in front of a football game. I think you may remember that.
I do recall that, although I was a little too busy to, as it was homecoming,
but
we had in my office were a little too busy to go.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of people coming through, and we had our students work it. We also use it to train elementary teachers because train them on what's there. Because when they leave, this is a resource for them as a Fort Hays grad to say, hey, come on out here. Maybe you do a planetarium program. Maybe you help me with robotics. Maybe you help me with soldering. Maybe you help me with basic paper roller coasters, whatever it may be. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, sure it does.
Your space in Forsyth Library, and that's a whole nother discussion there. And we've really expanded what we can do with that operation. We now have a laser cutter, and people are, unfortunately, everything got online about the time we had to shut down. So that's kind of where we're at. But that's a new piece, but people come in, students come in and do projects. We get a lot of art students coming in to do things, and we also work with the Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Bigs, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and anyway, we do a lot of different programs down in the maker space, but the maker van allows us to take it out to facilities. So really quite a bit. But I would encourage people to look at the foundation page where we did a tour of it, of the maker van,
right,
and had a picture of our laser cutter, which is, I think, an 11-minute video or something.
Okay. So I've just decided that we're going to have this video is going to be a little different than any other one, and that we're going to have the after hours with Dr. Adams, because clearly we're going to have to keep this part in that we just talked about with the maker van. So we didn't talk about the high altitude balloon either. So tell us about the high altitude balloon launches that you work on.
Well, the high altitude ballooning it's really kind of a It actually is a research project. It began with John Heinrichs, Dr. Heinrichs, who's passed on, but he and I worked closely on some things, and we really got into this as part of. We went to a NASA launch to see the last space shuttle launch, and of course it got rained out, so we were very disappointed. But while there, we said, you know what? We need to offer courses that will inspire and excite people. And so he did high altitude rockets, I did balloons, and we just had this whole thing about going to space. Had something to do with growing up in the 60s, I think, is really the big part. So we relived our youth, but out of that though is that the high altitude ballooning is not just, oh, we're going to fly a balloon up to, we go about over 15 miles high, over 100,000 feet in the air, but it's up to 15 miles. We pass through the troposphere, we go through the ozone layer, we go up the stratosphere, and we go to conditions like Mars. And so the last couple of years, I've been working with CAM students who have, I didn't mention that whole research piece, but they would work with me on research about flying the balloon up there, developing a payload to study. Some of them were studying yeast, others were looking at particulate matters, little matter that's up there. But that's the university side of the high altitude balloon. We also have, and this is where the Maker Van I talked about comes mobile lab site, is we work with school groups across the region to come out and help them. So we've had some NASA grants that funds the materials, and the teachers of those would say, okay, I want to fly this, whether it's middle or high school or elementary. And we say, you design the project, have your kids work on it. It aligns well with our standards for the state, gets them involved in engineering, all the good things that we want. And we then become, what I call Fort Hayes' answer to NASA. We're out there, we're doing these high altitude flights, and so we'll go and help a school fly it, track it, get it back for them, and then the kids will do their own analysis. So that's really cool. We have a developing partnership at Hayes High where they're going to be doing some high altitude ballooning as one of their elective courses, partly because we've done some things with them. And what we'll do is we'll be their launch facility and tracking facility so they can get them back. The experiments will be theirs, but we'll provide the expertise. It's kind of that perfect blend of what I always hoped we could do with the Maker Van, the Maker Space, of promoting education, particularly STEM education, that being my passionate background.
Well, and hopefully, Hayes High is the easy one to work with, right, to start.
Right.
And hopefully this will inspire others to come on board, right?
Yeah, it will. We worked with Trigo. I think it was last fall, we worked with Trigo High School, and then we were launching this spring. Actually, when I say spring, I mean January, not tough weather. Okay. But we were working with school up in Concordia, another one at St. Mary's School. So we already have done that. The new partnership is Hayes, but we have launched with high schools all across the state, even down into Fowler, Kansas, down in the Southwest. Every experience is different.
I'm sure. just like weather is always changing, right? I'm sure that's a piece of it here in Kansas, right?
You bet, because trying to decide when a launch will be and actually making it happen, probably the hardest one is we launched and there was about 6 inches of snow on the ground, and we said, we're going anyway, because we had a group of 10 teachers that were here for a workshop that were learning how to do it to use back in their classroom. And I said, all right, it's a blizzard, but we're going to fly anyway. And, it wasn't quite a blizzard. It was close, but we did it. And the teachers then did everything in their classroom afterwards. So very good project that we have.
Is there anything else that we should add that we should have pinned on here?
Let's see. Expect to get the traveling planetarium. I mentioned that in passing, but that's a major project that we have. Is we have a lot of schools in libraries. In the summer, it's libraries. In the winter, it's schools that will use our digital planetarium and inflatable dome. So if you have a spot with a 10-foot clearance, we can come in and do it. And we've done a lot of programs with that to promote star study, and it's a very exciting thing. One of the interesting things that we're trying this summer, even though we're not officially doing things on campus is that we are working remotely with one teacher who's learning how to program it. So that'll be coming up in the next year. Gigi Launchball got him some training, and so now we're going to try it with a teacher who's going to be writing scripting program to tailor the planetarium to target teaching for what people need in their classroom. So it's where our next phase is, because it's a major tool, and it's the next phase that comes up. So that's one thing I think I would share. And all sorts of other things, I'm sure if you asked me to think, I could come up.
Well, we can always have your contact information. If people have more questions, they can
Sure.
just reach out to you. Absolutely. If you want to talk about the Plymouth Schoolhouse, please do.
Okay, well, the Plymouth Schoolhouse was, and it's too bad Nancy's here, because Nancy Vogel was part of that effort to move it here back in 78, 79. And we celebrated it. We had a celebration 40th this fall. But the Plymouth Schoolhouse is available for tours by school groups or anybody. I know after we finish here, I'm going to go to the university and let some people in to take a look through. But it is from 1874, I believe is right. I probably have the years wrong. But it was built near Wilson, Kansas, and then moved here in 1978, 79, moved here stone by stone, all the way from near Wilson, Kansas to the university to commemorate the idea that Fort Hays has always had a role in education in this area. So if people come in, it's set up like it was. We were able to have pictures. We actually have documents of the school book, and it's neat as I've had people come in and say, yep, that was my great uncle right there on the book. They'll say, there, that was my great uncle, whatever it may be. And we even have an example of a diploma from somebody that graduated from that school right at the turn of the last century. I mean, we're talking a very old building. But for school groups, it's really nice in the spring with Kansas history. They often are talking about the westward migration and Kansas and its role in schools. So you come in, you get an ambiance, you get a feel of what that schoolroom is like. And for school groups, we'll do a little bit of role playing. But for other groups, just want to come in and look at it, and it's great. And the companion piece with this is at Forsyth Library, where they put together and took many of the audio tapes that were made and videotapes of former one-room schoolhouse people who taught in one-room schoolhouses or attended them. And it's done and it's saved there at Forsyth, as well as several artifacts online. So if you can't come there in person, go to the Forsyth Library electronic display of the schoolhouse. But if you are in person and want to see it, contact us or invite school groups to come in. It's a very cool facility.
And do you know the story of the pot-bellied stove well enough to share that one?
I do. And in fact, I finally decided to watch the movie Paper Moon. I kept hearing everybody talk about it. I said, all right, I finally got to watch it, because I've been told that the stove that's in the schoolhouse was in that movie. And so sure enough, I watched the movie and I saw that stove. So the stove it's really a coal burner. It's a very big thing, big, tall. It takes up the room, but it was originally from Wilson, Kansas. And when they filmed the movie, they used one of the stores up there that looks like it. So if you look, when they're in the store, one of the stores, not the one in Hayes, but the one in Wilson, and you can see it just right behind the star of the movie. You say, oh, there it is. I saw the potbelly stove. So how it came to Fort Hays, though, is kind of interesting, is that Ivanovich, who was the director, producer of that movie, had called back to the owner of that store, said, hey, I want to buy that potbelly stove off of you because it's so cool and I want it. And then he called up the professor that was in charge of the Anschutz, and his name slips me at the moment, called him up and said, look, you get here this afternoon and you pick it up, because if my wife finds out, she's going to sell it to that guy, and I don't want this thing and there were probably some expletives in there, but leave them out. I don't want this thing going to Hollywood. It belongs here, and it should stay here in Kansas. And so they went up there, and I think Kim Stewart was maybe part of that. They drove up, they got it, and they brought it back. And it's a centerpiece in the schoolhouse. And if you look at pictures that we have of the schoolhouse, it's very similar to what was actually used to heat it. So it's a cool movie artifact, our claim to Hollywood fame right there in the schoolhouse. And if you look at Paper Moon, you will see it flashing. But you also see Main Street of Hayes at that time too, which is kind of cool too.
And Turner Classic Movies does show that every once in a while. So
yeah,
catch it on your whatever device you're using these days to watch television.
You bet.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it. I'll stop.